So for today's video, I will be having more of a conversational style, which I'll explain why later on in a story that I have for you, where I just share about my NoFap flatline journey in a more candid and conversational way. Now I expect this video to probably take a longer amount of time because in some sense this video would more also be like a therapy for myself because I am currently in a flatline. For those of you that do not know what a flatline is, essentially it is withdrawal from watching pornography, withdrawal from masturbation. How do you feel, or what and where did this term flatline come from? I would say that in my personal NoFap journey, in the initial 7 days, 14 days, I feel a lot of energy. I feel a lot more attractive. I feel a lot more confident. And then as the days go by, right now I'm on day 240 something of NoFap hard mode slash semen retention. And later on, I'll also be sharing with you the specific details of this 240 plus days journey. But I do want this to be more conversational. So, the story behind why I want to have a more conversational video is because I was at the gym with some of my bros, some of my male friends, and I found out that even though I was still in a flat line, meaning I felt unmotivated, I felt mildly depressed, I felt like there is, I wouldn't say no hope, but there is less hope, and the general train of thought of the mind tends towards more negative things. Even after I do very heavy weightlifting, for example, it didn't exactly change the way I felt, but I was able to have a good conversation with one of my gym bros, and that somehow lifted me from that place of, if you could put it, darkness. And I do wish that by speaking to you, even though it is through a camera, especially for those of you that are currently going through the flatline, please know that there are men out there are guys out there just like us that are struggling with this flatline. And I believe that this is the final frontier that we have to overcome before we can really just claim the freedom that we have in purity. And that is the hope of this particular video, which later on I'll continue to share about why I believe purity and NoFap and semen retention really is so important for men of this generation. So I want to talk more about my NoFap timeline. So I'm on day 245, right? The initial 100 days were not clean. I would say around 10% of the initial 100 days I was still viewing sexually explicit content. Now, I believe because of that, I did not exactly go through very severe flatline for the first 100 days, because to me the flatline is not linked so much to semen retention, but it is more so linked to the watching of sexually stimulating material. And this is something that is very, very apparent for me, because for the first 100 days, didn't really have a flat line, still felt pretty good. Now, the next 140 days was when I was really very clean, because I was following some of the principles of this book that I'm writing. And basically, to cut the long story short, I made a commitment to purity, and somehow using this particular intention, I was able to really abstain from watching any sexually explicit material. And I would say I only picked maybe one out of the 140 days, one or two out of the 140 days. So maybe around day 200, I started to peak. And when you peak after hundreds of days of not watching pornography, if you actually stay long enough in your peaking, you literally feel the dopamine like flooding your brain. I literally felt it in the first 5, 10, 15, 20, 30 seconds. It's like, wow. And it is almost like a druggie taking a drug. I instantly felt two things. Number one, I felt how much pleasure is being shot through my brain. And number two, I felt how superficial and empty this particular form of bonding with your screen is. Because I do have some experience, let's say, going on dates and meeting girls. It's a very different form of intimacy and connection when you're when you are bonding with a screen versus you are actually speaking to a live woman. So in my own personal experience, that particular dopamine being shot through my brain actually caused me to, of course, continue peaking for a few hours until I recovered myself. This very, very bad flatline, my current flatline lasted from day 210 or so all the way until now. So I'm currently already on like the third or fourth week of my flatline, and on average I feel like my productivity has been cut by more than half. From, let's say, a baseline of 100%, every single day I'm operating at like 20%. I would literally wake up from my bed and not feel like doing anything. And this is different from the other 200 days when I first started NoFap, because I felt more stable, I felt more energy in the initial 200 days. This particular flatline was, out of the 12 years that I've done NoFap, is probably the worst that I've ever felt. And in my mind, what causes this is the mind is unable to cope with the lower level of dopamine. And to me, what's happening is that my receptors are changing and improving because of my suddenly starving my brain of all these feel-good hormones that comes from pornography. Why I'm posting this video is essentially because I felt bad. I think I was in more of like a state of stagnation. Yes, I'm also trying to build my YouTube, etc. But this essentially is also a therapy for me. And I recently wrote a Reddit post on this idea of creation versus consumption. The idea is that when a man is creating, he feels a lot of joy, he feels a lot of exuberance, he feels useful. And when he is in a state of consumption, I mean, those of you that are watching this video right now, in some way you are consuming. But you can be consuming good things like this video, or you can be consuming absolute trash like watching TikTok, scrolling mindlessly on Instagram, or watching other videos that just keeps on triggering the dopamine without really anything useful coming out of it. And I realized that whenever I am in this state of creation, it really doesn't matter if like this state of creation really brings you a lot of money, for example. You can create a book by writing. You can create or build your body by going to the gym. When you create and build something as a man, it feels very, very good. And even as I'm speaking to the camera right now, I do feel better. I don't feel as stagnant as when I'm just not doing anything and just being so sad that, oh, I'm in a flat line, for example. So one of the things that I want to share with you is how I recognize the flat line. I recognize the flat line because it's always felt the same way in the past 12 years that I have felt it. You might have your own personal signature of what a flat line feels like. For me, I start to feel a certain lightness in the front part of my head, right behind the skull, this particular area. And there is a brain fog in that area that makes it sometimes harder to string together sentences. I may misspeak even. My memory definitely takes a hit when I am in a flat line. And right now, I'm already in the flat line for almost 3 weeks. And every single day for like 70-80% of the day, I am in this state. I believe my receptors are going through rebirth, okay? And I believe that it will take time, but in my own opinion, I don't believe it will take longer than 1 month. Hopefully, I am right. Like I mentioned, this is one of the worst flatline experience yet. And it made me realize this idea that, success in life is really all about what triggers your dopaminergic response. For the first 200 days, I didn't really think about it because I had kind of like a normal brain. I was moving forward. I was so proud of this book that I've written that I finally felt like I have cracked the code. I'm able to improve every single day. And then suddenly this flatline came and my productivity essentially got cut by more than half. You see, nature or God, to me, has created natural stimulus to guide our survival. Imagine in caveman times or in a time where there's no less technology, your brain lights up when it sees a fruit or it sees something colorful or it sees a potential mate. And what dopamine does, it motivates you to go after that object, right? And the problem with today's social media generation is that a lot of the big tech companies are hijacking the part of your brain. Take TikTok, for example. There is a lot of, they call it shifting context. Every 5 seconds, it's a shifting context. Next video. And it is hijacking your brain so that your dopaminergic response is so hyper-stimulated towards that direction, which is TikTok watch time. And it just traps you within this ecosystem where your brain thinks that, it has found so many exciting stuff, these exciting times, so many human beings that I'm interacting with. But what your brain has not evolved to realize, that your consciousness obviously know, is that you are actually scrolling on a screen rather than interacting with all the whatever TikTok or Instagram content you're watching. Your brain thinks that, I'm hanging with this supermodel, I'm watching this beautiful woman dancing, I am looking at experiencing this funny situation. But in reality, you are on your phone scrolling and scrolling and scrolling. And yeah, it kind of sucks that our brain is being bullied like this by, in some sense, our own choice, but in another sense, by the environment that we, growing up in this big tech generation, are forced towards. I have this thought about men and women. You see, men essentially have to create their own value in order to make their place in this world. Now, we are definitely not disadvantaged in terms of generating value in, let's say, academia, sciences, etc., athleticism, sports. No problem. If you're the top 10% of any field, most of the time you are a man, and most of the time it's okay. But if you're not the top 10%, you are still plagued with this demand that you have to create value as a man to be valuable. Women, on the other hand, are born with value. The most prized and valuable part of a female is her beauty. Men are prized for strength, competence, power. Women are prized for beauty. That's because female beauty generates a lot of positive emotions in men, and that emotion, therein lies the value. It's like a emotion, like females to men are like emotion generating machines, right? It just so many feel good emotions that just come from women. So the whole thing was something that I thought about while I was in Flatline. Of course, I thought about it in a more negative way because I would feel a bit dejected, like, oh gosh, I'm a man and I have to create value, and then I'm working on my Patreon while girls can go on OnlyFans and then just show off their bodies and get money, etc. But when I have to create value, it takes a thought process, it takes certain hustle, and you can fail. And I literally do face rejections even while I am out there, let's say, dating, right? And it reminded me of this metaphor of so basically imagine, like, after a penis ejaculates in a vagina, what happens is that the semen starts to go through the vagina. And I think I was watching some documentary on this about how there are actually linings on the way to the egg, right? There are actually linings on the vagina that is meant to sieve out the sperms that are weaker, so that only the stronger sperms get to reach the vagina, get to reach the egg. And since you're on this earth, you were that final sperm, the strongest sperm that hit the egg, and therefore you were born. It's interesting because a lot of us think that, like, women are there to help you, to support you, but I think many a times they are actually there to strengthen men by making our lives sometimes more difficult. And if you have had any healthy relationship with women, it's true that sometimes out of nowhere they will create drama, etc. Ultimately, the goal is to cause you to gain strength, right? But while you're going through it, it's like, come on, that sperm that didn't make it through the regions of the vagina, that sperm didn't get to be born. And I think a lot of times when us as men, we go through the dating market and then we get tested, they call it the shit test by women, etc. Oh, it doesn't feel good. It doesn't feel good. But we have to understand that we are men, they are women, and we are faced with different standards. And semen retention and NoFap is absolutely the tool that can help us regain our strength, regain our bargaining power in this. There's this thought, what if life is actually easier when my hardware, okay, aka my hormones, the way my brain is meant to work, is in accordance with the Creator's handbook. I don't really believe that our brains were meant for TikTok, Instagram, etc., yada yada. And in fact, the biblical standard, meaning what the Bible, the Christian Bible, says about sexual purity, is actually a very high standard, right? I think Jesus said something like, if you look at a woman with your eyes, and let's say you imagine in your heart and you are tempted in your heart, then you have already committed adultery. That is a very high standard for sexual purity. And the question is, but what if actually living a pure life would make you so much happier and unlock happiness, fulfillment, and satisfaction that you never would have experienced if you were a sex addict? And that is what I want to find out. And as you continue to follow this channel, hopefully when I go through the flatline, when I reach day 300 plus, 400 plus, I will be able to share with you what kind of difference it makes in my life. And also, I'm wondering whether you, the viewer, watching this, you are part of this group of men that are struggling and hurting, because while I'm in this flatline, it really made me think that, wow, sometimes when you are in this state of sadness and darkness, it's not easy, because I don't think society views men in their 20s, 30s, 40s, younger men, as men that are in need of help. We are the burden of value creation is placed on us. You're a young man, figure it out. And the thing is, nowadays a lot of these social media and sexual stimulus are bombarding us and actually weakening us, so that yes, a man in his teens, in his 20s and in his 30s, whatever, that is able to retain his semen and is able to stay sexually pure, he would of course have a brain that is motivated. He would of course have a body that is more well built, for example, and his state of mind would be great. That is true. But the thing right now is, we have taken away the core of man's masculinity by making him a slave to sex. And I just recall this story that I heard. I think it's a video where it was stated that in Japan, this was from 5-6 years ago, in Japan, like 30% of the men in Japan don't even leave their house. There's a term used for it. The younger generation of men that like to watch anime, like to cosplay, and they have never dated. And in this particular group, there's a lot of like anime related sexual fetishes, or they will want to marry a cartoon character, etc., etc. And I understand why, because it can be quite painful to put yourself out in the dating market today. And the thing about Japan is, if you didn't know, they were involved in World War II, which means that they built very strong military, and then in the end, they were not allowed to continue with such a strong military. So right now, even today, I believe that their military is very much regulated. And this means that masculinity, of conquest, of fighting, of asserting, becomes very demonized, because they are essentially a group of people that has grown up believing that they were the aggressors, when it was actually their grandparents that were very masculine men, so masculine that they went around killing people, right? So that is something that's very sad. And I just want to say that if you are one of these men who are struggling and hurting, please give NoFap or semen retention your best shot, because there are many things in life we can't choose, right? You can't choose your race, you can't choose your nationality, you can't choose the parents that you're born with. You could be born into a rich family or a poor family. And of course, there are a lot of these things that growing up, people would wish that they are able to change. I want a better environment, or even your IQ. I want higher IQ. I want to be taller. I want to be shorter. Okay, most guys wouldn't want to be shorter. I want better facial features. A lot of these things we do blame, I think, especially when you realize that, hey, you as a man, you are not born with value. You have to create value. It's painful, but you do have the choice to stay pure. And in this is, let's say, even charisma. If you are able to go 1 year without fapping, number one, your self-control is probably the top 2%, 3% of the entire population. 365 days. I have not been able to reach there even after 12 years. Of course, now in this particular streak, it's my best streak ever, 240 plus days. But even so, I have not reached 365 days. But you definitely have the choice to stay pure. And it sounds very stupid, but to me, being pure in today's world is actually a very valuable asset. Now, you don't have to stay pure for the rest of your life. Just take out 1 year or 2 years. If I did it right 12 years ago, my life may possibly be very different right now. But that is maybe just the regret of wasting my earlier years. But I don't want to come to this place where 12 years later I will look back on today and say, if only I had stayed pure then my life would be very different. No, just stop now. And it is not an easy decision to stop. So of course, feel free to be supported by, let's say, watching my videos. There are a lot of great NoFap videos or self-improvement videos out there. Watch them. As far as possible in this particular topic, follow a male speaking. I think that would be a lot more helpful, because if you follow a female content creator, many a times if you are more weak-willed or easily tempted, you might fall because you're following a female content creator. So be wise about how you set up your environment. Like, even when my friends send me those videos that show very scantily dressed women, and he said, oh, this is a very funny video, the moment I opened it and I saw for 5, 10, 20 seconds that there were scantily dressed women in the video, I had the willpower to just say that, hey, I don't want to risk it. I don't necessarily feel tempted, but I want to be very vigilant in not allowing myself to slip, because it is always when you allow that step 1 that step 2 comes, and when step 2 comes, step 3 comes, step 4 comes, and then you just fall into this slippery slope. And then when you are there, gosh, it feels really, really bad. Brotherhood is so important. So the reason why I wanted this to be more conversational was because I had a brother and a friend that I was able to just share this with. And okay, I really don't know who exactly you are and what kind of situations you have, but if you have guy friends, that are doing NoFap, even better, because there is a certain energy that accompanies guys that are willing to stay pure, and there's a certain energy that accompany guys that are out to either have sex, score, or that they are addicted to pornography. The energy that is being given off is very different. Like, some guys, you look at them and you know that the moment they have to choose between a woman and you, your date meet, he will always choose the woman because he has no sexual control. And I believe that probably describes a lot of men today. I mean, even on celebrity news or YouTubers or like whatever stories that are shared about how men today would just betray their good friends, betray their best friends in order to get together with some other girl. It's not that you cannot do this per se. If the chronology is right and you aren't really like trying to go for the girl of your best friend while they are together, I think in some ways, yeah, but to be honest, I would value the friendship, assuming it's a good friend, of course, so much more than a relationship, or rather a dating relationship with that woman, because loyalty is rare, and brothers that can stick with you are worth a lot more, because I would personally say that women are more loyal to their emotions. And until and unless she has fallen very in love with you, loyalty is many a times not exactly something that you can really expect from women, especially very, very beautiful women. So, brotherhood, very, very important. Sometimes when I'm down, I like to listen to strong men. This can probably be YouTube or certain people that you follow. Share about their conquests, or share about their thoughts, share about their opinions, because this masculine energy really grounds me. It makes me feel more masculine. And many a times when you are down, you are feeling more emotional, right? You are feeling torn and sad and emotional and rejected. You are in a sense in more of a boyish / feminine state. And there are a few ways to really get better. You can have a conversation with a friend, and or you can see other men kicking ass and winning in life, and it can really affect your masculinity as well. You see, feminine energy excites, and it creates and causes chaos. That is why a lot of men out there, when you deal with women in your life, it is exciting, it is fun, but it's also chaotic, right? Masculine energy stabilizes and creates order. So, the more beautiful a woman is, the more potential she has to excite and to cause chaos, which means that you need to have a corresponding masculinity, a masculine center, some people call it the masculine frame, in order to stabilize the relationship and create order. No matter how strong you think your masculine center is, it can be disrupted in the presence of a highly feminine force. Now, let's take example Elon Musk, right? So in the recent Johnny Depp and Amber Heard trial, I think his text messages with Amber Heard was shown. Now you have to realize that Elon Musk is like the apex of willpower to me. He says something is going to be done, and he's willing to work 23 hours a day in order to get it done. If you ask me to record 23 hours worth of video, that would already drive me crazy. But this guy is able to work 23 hours a day doing highly intensive thought work. And even this guy, with his supreme level of willpower, amazing intellect, in some sense got outplayed by Amber Heard in the field of love. In this particular text, I think he was kind of seen chasing her because she accused Johnny Depp of abusing her, and then he was being all white knighty, saying that he was willing to send a security team to take care of her, yada yada, etc. And in the particular text, he also mentioned how he felt so hurt that she no longer replies him. That is something that is very, very much a shocker, because he is like the richest man in the world, right? So money isn't a problem. I think he looks okay. He's not short either. So many a times it is about having that masculine center, number one, and number two, understanding female nature, and don't get to a place where you become like a simp. If the relationship really isn't working out, sometimes you just have to harden yourself and walk away, because there's only two conclusions left, right? If things aren't working out, you either walk away in a more dignified manner, or number two, you continue to hold on and make a fool out of yourself. And I think as a self-respecting man, sometimes no matter how beautiful the woman is, you have to be willing to walk away. Do NoFap and semen retention to build this masculine center. And even then, it may not be enough. You might have to really learn about female nature if that is what you are seeking and looking for. If you are learning how to play a piano, you still have to put in the hours. If you want to build a business, you still have to do it. What it does is it gives you this assurance and this energy that you are able to be creative, to be bold, to be courageous. And even in, I don't know how much time has elapsed since I'm filming this video, but because I've been in this creation mode for the past 20 to 30 minutes, and I'm just talking, letting my thoughts flow, I feel better. I feel better than if I spent the past 30-40 minutes just on my phone playing a game, which is how sometimes time passes when I am in my flatline state, right? So it's very, very different. And I mean, for you people out there that are considering, let's say, starting your own YouTube channel, I say, why not? Just speak into your camera. When I started, I just had a MacBook Pro laptop. I just spoke into the camera. Image quality, yes, all these things can be improved, but the whole idea isn't so much will you succeed. The whole idea is, are you able to just enter a creation mode? And it just feels so good when you are in creation mode, knowing that you are creating a little something that you can be proud of. I want to take this chance to mention my experience setting up a Patreon. For those of you that don't understand what's a Patreon, essentially Patreon is like a website where they allow you to support people. They call them patrons, and support creators, and you are the patron. So what you can do is you will be able to subscribe monthly to certain memberships and be able to support your creator. So what's happening is I registered myself as a creator on Patreon, and basically I've been very grateful to have had people that are willing to pledge of course monetarily, in order to support my YouTube channel, as well as get access to this particular book that I've been writing. So I'm very thankful. There are 2 patrons right now, and I'm very thankful to the both of you for pledging and supporting me. It's not so much about the amount of monetary returns to me, because right now I'm working a full-time job and I definitely don't necessarily need the support per se. But it's this same idea. It goes back to this idea that when people put in an effort, when I spend time to create something, it's always very nice to know that you are appreciated. It's always very nice to know that people are willing to pay for something you have created. It doesn't matter what you're doing. If you're teaching as a teacher, that means that your knowledge is valuable. And I think that that ties to the meaning of work in some sense. Like, work should be the idea that my craft is so valuable that people are willing to pay me for it, and that in itself gives me dignity as a human being. And that is why to me it is nice to be able to get rewarded for the hard work that you have put in. I think even in the Bible it is written, a worker deserves his wages. And I think that's what I want to say. And yeah, my immediate plan, of course, with this finances coming in from Patreon, is to upgrade my camera, which I have been receiving some comments on. Of course, if you feel very strongly that I should upgrade my camera, then please support me at my Patreon as well. One more thought process that I've had is, I don't know whether in your country there's Starbucks. In mine there is. And I was thinking, basically the price of supporting me in Patreon is like the price of a cup of coffee. And Starbucks has been so good at selling people sugared water. I mean, I personally wouldn't mind drinking Starbucks, but the fanatics at Starbucks essentially are more than willing to just tell Starbucks, take my money, give me 700 ml, 500 ml of sugar water with coffee inside, and do it every single day. While to me, what I'm talking about is actually very, very life-changing content. And I was just thinking it through. People sometimes make decisions out of habit, and if you think about it, Starbucks and coffee essentially just targets your dopamine response. For all the coffee lovers out there, essentially we are addicted to caffeine, right? So when you are no longer having any caffeine, you can't help but be forced to drink and take that shot of caffeine, that drug. It's not really a very heavy drug, but then again, for those of you that have not tried to quit coffee or quit caffeine, you'll be surprised how painful it is when you actually do so. So, to add one more layer to this, right? The idea of, let's say, OnlyFans. I think there was this girl selling water that she bathed herself with on, I don't know whether on OnlyFans or wherever, but basically this category of models and content creators that essentially just sells their value of looking good, right, through pictures, etc. It circles back to the idea that men have to create their own value, that I have to really post. I probably have posted hundreds and if not thousands of videos, put in almost thousands of hours into this particular channel, and may not have much to show for it in terms of, let's say, monetary returns. While women that are born with value, essentially they can go on any social media site if they are looking good, right? Do some makeup, show some skin, and then instantly get into the game and become the top 5, 1%, 10% of earners in that category. What does this mean as a man? It means that you are aware of it, realize that this gender difference is definitely unfair, depending on how you look at it. Fair in the sense that it is two different arenas that we are competing in. But I did have this thought, what if things would be a lot more equal if only men would retain their semen. I mean, first off, if the whole world were pure, OnlyFans wouldn't exist. But we all know that the whole world would never be pure. So OnlyFans would forever exist because vices sell. Coffee sells, pornography sells. You know and I know, even when I want to click that button to say I do not want to watch it, it's like your brain is just possessed and you just get drawn into it. It takes so much effort. NoFap is like a movement. There's even like No Nut November, etc. But when the fabric of society is so sexualized, it's not easy. It's really, really not easy to be able to hold your ground and stay pure in this world. You see, I've watched videos of no-fappers or semen retention bros in their video share about how women want them more when they knew that he was retaining his semen and then therefore he didn't want to ejaculate. You see, women do have a certain sense of confidence and entitlement when it comes to seducing men. And by practicing semen retention, I believe if your goal was to get hitched or get laid, it will make it a lot easier. But if you really, really ask me, there's no point to pointless sex. That's something I believe to the core of my being. And I believe there is a deeper layer of getting to know someone, of like just having a conversation that is so nourishing to the soul that if you are really still with me at this point of the video, I want to thank you, because to me it is a bit more like having a conversation with a friend over coffee, and most of what I'm saying is not exactly scripted already, and I'm just sharing whatever comes to the top of my head. So if you're still here, thank you. And yeah, finally, just want to end off with this thought that, you know, if we as men find women and what they provide, which is, let's say, sex or whatever else you find valuable in women today, if the vagina is attractive and precious, then surely our penis and our semen is precious as well. As long as we do not change the state of how it was meant to be, we will be able to regain our strength. Now, I can only share this with you if I have gone through a long period of really staying pure, and please stay tuned. I do plan to share on a longer term, maybe when I reach 1 year, etc., how this whole journey really is. And I already start to feel better about my flatline thing. We'll keep everyone updated when this flatline is finally over and I finally regain my productivity. So finally, just want to say that if you want to apply the secrets of succeeding in NoFap once and for all, remember how I said in the second batch of 140 days, I went almost 139 days of them totally pure. I applied the secrets in this book that I'm writing, and it really helped me to stay focused and stay anchored on purity. Now, if you're also tired of an unproductive life, if you're tired of people telling you that your life can change in the matter of days, so suddenly day 0 you're Joe Schmo, day 7 you are literally like the god of the universe, lies, right? Visit my Patreon page, have a look, and if you are really willing to support, I want to just thank you. I think you would have made one of the best decisions, because whatever I've written in that book is really, really, really the most important thing that I have ever found in my life. Apply all these things that I've written in this book, and you will start to move towards the correct direction. So finally, let me end off and say that if you like this video, please like it, comment, subscribe, and I'll see you again.